In my opinion, $2 trillion worth of EU is leaving the US like a flood, with no warning signs. President Trump, saying he wants a straight 50% tariff on the EU beginning the 1st of June, because President Trump has said he is recommending a new 50% tariff on all imports from the European Union. Quote, "Our discussions with them are going nowhere. Therefore, I am recommending a straight 50% tariff on the European Union." Are tariffs really a shield to protect American citizens? Or are they a flood sweeping away money and jobs from the US? It all started when President Donald Trump stood in the Oval Office and declared that trade talks with European Union were irreversibly stalled. Less than 6 hours later, an executive order was signed, a 50% tariff on all imports from Europe, covering steel, aluminum cars, food-processed agricultural products, electronics, and medical devices. No warnings, no adjustment period. In my view, Europe's response was not only swift but also chilling. Instead of holding press conferences or calling on the WTO for help, Europe began pulling away. The first move was to propose freezing a $30 billion 737 MAX order between Ryanair and Boeing, one of the largest civil aviation contracts ever signed. Then came the plan to reroute supply chains through Canada, leveraging the CETA deal to eliminate 98% of tariffs. Lastly, a $95 billion retaliatory tariff package aimed at U.S. goods from Harley-Davidson motorcycles to peanut butter and medical equipment. In my assessment, more than $2 trillion of international trade could be rerouted if tensions continue, a number too big to ignore, even for those who still believe in the inherent strength of the U.S. economy. Most of the media sees this as a tit-for-tat retaliation, but the reality is far deeper. This is not an emotional reaction. It's a structured campaign to break away, one that has been prepared in the wings for a long time. Europe no longer believes that trade relations with the US are stable. What they're doing now is changing strategy. Instead of trying to protect transatlantic cooperation, they are investing in alternative relationships with Canada through CETA, with China through civil aviation trade, and with India through clean technology and battery supply chains. In my opinion, when Boeing lost the $30 billion order from Ryanair, it wasn't just a loss of revenue, it was a loss of position. Comarmac, China's state-owned aircraft company, which was once considered subpar by Western standards, is now seen as a serious alternative. Airbus immediately benefited. Its stock jumped 3.4% on the Frankfurt Exchange just 24 hours after Ryanair's announcement. The U.S. has always believed it held the trade leverage because it's the largest consumer market in the world. But what's happening now shows that leverage is no longer about purchasing power, it's about trust. And this time, Europe is not betting on Washington. For nearly 8 decades since World War II, the U.S. and Europe have been the pillars of the global economy. They not only exchanged goods, but all built standards together, from technical specifications and safety certifications to financial mechanisms like SWIFT and the WTO. Boeing aircraft, once a proud symbol of American industry, have always been the first choice for European airlines. The idea of a European airline buying from Comarmac, a Chinese manufacturer, was once unthinkable. But by 2025, the unthinkable is becoming a reality, not because Comarmac suddenly became superior, but because Washington has become unpredictable. When a tariff policy can be imposed with just a tweet and trade agreements can be torn apart without consultation, the most risky thing isn't the product, it's the partner. President Trump's 50% tariffs weren't the only shocker. In my view, what's even more dangerous is how they were rolled out, sweeping, sudden, and with no safety valves. Instead of negotiating sector by sector, item by item, the U.S. slapped blanket tariffs on all EU goods, cars, metals, food, even electronics, that didn't just catch Europe off guard. It sent global investors into a tailspin. Now here's what I think happens next. The euro drops 1.6% against the dollar in just 3 days. German and French industrial output, it could plunge to post-pandemic lows. But Europe won't just sit quietly. Mark my words. Brussels will strike back strategically. I'm talking about a $95 billion counter package, targeting political symbols Harley-Davidson's maiden battleground, Wisconsin Levis's jeans, and American icon and essentials like milk, butter, and soybeans. And that's not all. The EU It could freeze all post-certification deals with Boeing, forcing Ryanair to reconsider its $30 billion of 737 MAX order a deal. Washington once bragged about if parts costs jump 14% and deliveries get delayed, Ryanair might have no choice but to look at Airbus or even China's Comac. Think about that, a major European airline putting Comarmac on par. With Boeing, that's not just a warning shot, it's a 5-alarm fire for American aviation. This won't just hurt corporations, it'll ripple through factories, farms, and ports. By mid-2025, U.S. farm exports to Europe could drop by 2 billion. The steepest decline in 15 years. Take Land of Lakes, a Wisconsin dairy co-op. They've already halted cheese shipments to France and Germany. Butter plants may lay off 800 seasonal workers, mostly immigrants, tenant farmers. This isn't just about trade anymore, it's about communities. Harley-Davidson, they could lose 30% of EU sales by 2024, $145 million hit by Q3 2025. Factories in Milwaukee, Pennsylvania, and York, once hubs for skilled labor, might slash shifts or shut down entirely. John Deere and Caterpillar face the same storm, and here's the kicker. While U.S. goods slump, competitors leap in Brazil. Australia and Canada are flooding Europe with farm exports. America isn't just losing orders, it's losing market share on paper. Trump's tariffs were supposed to bring supply chains home. Instead, the U.S. trade deficit could hit a record $140.5 billion in early 2025. Why? Because companies aren't returning. They're fleeing to Mexico, Vietnam, India, anywhere outside this tariff war. This isn't a trade crisis. It's a global power shift with America. On the sidelines, take CETA, the EU-Canada deal signed in 2017. It's now thriving, with 98% tariffs gone, and a new Atlantic logistics corridor. Canada's replacing the U.S. as Europe's go-to partner in 2024 alone. Canada clean tech trade surged 41%, €1.2 billion poured into hydrogen smart grids and lithium batteries. But wait, there's more. The EU inked 17 new trade deals in 18 months with India, the UAE, Kenya, Singapore. The rulebook: no dollar pricing, no U.S. standards, no Washington approval needed. European firms now source from Bangalore, not Boston, Toronto, not Texas, and Boeing, America's crown jewel, is crumbling when Ryanair walked away. Boeing lost $8 billion in market value in a week if Comac lands that deal. It's not just a win for China, it's a symbolic defeat for the U.S. in a sector we once dominated: civil aviation. So if Europe ditches America, if Canada becomes the new strategic partner, if commjets fill Western skies, the question isn't when the U.S. fights back, it's will we even get a seat at the table while the world rewrites rules. Washington keeps playing the same old game. So when Brussels, Ottawa, yes, even Beijing stays silent, is that surrender or proof that America's being left behind? One shipment, one contract, one alliance at a time. 5 major German car brands, 37,000 Audi vehicles on hold, and a 50% tariff from Trump are pushing Europe's entire auto industry to the edge. Could this be the start of a full-blown trade war in May 2025? A brief but powerful notice shook the European auto industry. President Donald Trump issued an ultimatum. If European car makers don't relocate production to the U.S., they will face a 50% tariff on all imported cars starting the 1st of June. Trump left no room for negotiation. No, maybe, or consideration here. Only 2 options: build a factory in the U.S., or pay the price. The reaction was swift. Stocks for companies like Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz plunged by 6 to 12% in just 3 days, at a time when every company's worth is tied to its market value. This volatility not only hits finances but damages trust more seriously. Ongoing mergers and acquisitions, M&A, were either delayed or canceled. A U.S. investment fund pulled out of a deal to acquire Audi's Latin American branch due to concerns over new legal and tariff risks. In business, instability and policies can kill negotiations in their final stages, but with risk always comes opportunity. When the 50% tariff on imported gas-powered Cars from Europe was proposed, it didn't just stun traditional car makers, it unexpectedly opened the door for the electric vehicle, EV, and urban mobility sectors in the U.S. Homegrown tech startups, long struggling to carve out space, suddenly found new room to grow. Rivian, a leader in the electric pickup truck segment, saw orders surge by 28% in May alone. Lucid Motors, with its luxury Air electric sedan, even announced a 20% expansion of its production line in Arizona to meet soaring demand. The electrification supply chain also picked up. Speed battery and electric motor manufacturing plants in Ohio and Michigan received additional low-interest loan packages from the federal government to help fuel reindustrialization. The U.S. Department of Commerce calls this a golden opportunity to reduce reliance on imported parts and proactively localize production. German automakers leaving the U.S. market or pivoting their production strategies sends a clear message. Whoever can stick around in the U.S. will control the market share, and in this landscape, U.S. EV manufacturers like Tesla, Lucid, and Rivian are taking the lead. Moreover, the new tax policy is changing how Americans view personal transportation, with prices for imported gas cars climbing. Consumers, especially in major cities like New York, San Francisco, or Seattle, beginning to turn to smaller, more affordable, eco-friendly urban mobility options like electric scooters, two-seater minis, or EV sharing services. Many cities are even speeding up their electric vehicle infrastructure projects, such as installing public charging stations in residential areas and providing designated parking spots for EVs, making the greening of urban areas a pressing and immediate reality. While physical manufacturing is under threat due to the tariff war, another front of competition is quietly accelerating: the tech race in self-driving cars and artificial intelligence (AI). German car makers, known for their mechanical precision, are realizing that their technical edge is being challenged by the rise of software technology from the US and China, facing the threat of being pushed out of the US market, where consumer spending is high and tech-savvy buyers abound. These companies are pivoting. BMW has expanded its partnership with NVIDIA to integrate the ADrive Orin platform into future car models. This allows vehicles to automatically learn traffic behavior, analyze real-time environmental data, and make more accurate driving decisions. Crucial for navigating the complex and crowded urban environments of the U.S., Mercedes-Benz is investing heavily in a new R&D center in North Carolina, focused on algorithms for safe driving, collision prevention, object recognition, and route optimization. They've also begun recruiting AI engineers from top universities like MIT, Stanford, and Georgia Tech, highlighting the importance of restructuring their product strategy. Audi, which doesn't yet have a factory in the U.S., is reportedly negotiating with a tech partner in Austin to develop its own self-driving software ecosystem, instead of relying on platforms from Bosch or Continental as they have in the past. German automakers' response has been a quiet strategy: no press conferences, grand announcements, just a signature on the price list, pausing shipments to the U.S. as early as April. Audi ordered a freeze on all exports to the U.S. Porsche hurriedly shipped nearly 5,000 cars ahead of the tariff deadline. BMW frees shipments of sedans from Europe. Mercedes rushed a batch of SUVs to dealers in Alabama, Las Vegas, and New York before the new tax took effect. The result, a shock to consumers. Dealers in Houston reported a shortage of Audi Q5s, as just 6 weeks after shipments stopped, the retail price of the Porsche Tan surged by $10,000. After the last batch arrived, BMW raised prices by 4% on its 2 Series assembled in Mexico. Consumers were directly affected not just by the price hikes but by longer wait times for cars. Cars that had been ordered with delayed. Sellers were worried. Buyers were frustrated as German automakers are forced to leave the U.S. market and cannot maintain production in Europe due to rising costs. The big question arises: where will they go next to access the North American market without facing harsh tariffs? The answer to the tax avoidance puzzle, while still accessing the North American market, is becoming clearer. Canada. The reason isn't just that Canada isn't hit with import tariffs like Europe, but also its strategic geographic location. Developed industrial infrastructure, and trade agreement network. The most notable agreement is USMCA, the free trade agreement between the US, Mexico, and Canada, which allows cars made in Canada to be exported to the US without tariffs if they meet regional content requirements. This makes Canada a neutral stronghold as Europe trade tensions escalate with modern logistics systems, a highly skilled workforce, and a stable policy environment. Canada is no longer just a safe third party, it's becoming the new strategic hub for the global auto industry. UD and Porsche are exploring infrastructure in Ontario, the industrial heart of Canada, which already has part suppliers, logistics, systems, and proximity to trade routes into the U.S. BMW has submitted an official proposal to both the federal and provincial governments to discuss investment incentives, particularly for high-end electric vehicles. Quebec and Alberta have rolled out new incentive packages, including property tax exemptions, reductions in the first 5 years, cuts in corporate income taxes, and support for plant construction costs, aiming to attract green technology projects and eco-friendly supply chains. With a wide open and trade network, abundant clean energy, and clear incentives, Canada is positioning itself as the 21st century auto manufacturing hub. The shift of production lines from Europe to Canada is reshaping the Canadian auto market in 3 clear ways. First, Canadian consumers are directly benefiting. Car prices from brands like Audi, BMW, and Porsche are likely to decrease slightly due to reduced logistics costs and tariffs, while delivery times are expected to shorten significantly. Second, the job market in industrial provinces like Ontario and Quebec is booming. The opening of factories will not only create thousands of direct jobs but will also drive demand for AI engineers, supply chain experts, and high-tech technicians, especially in the green electric vehicle production sector. Lastly, Canada is becoming the strategic springboard for automakers to re-export to the U.S. without the 50% tariff. Thanks to the USMCA, cars assembled in Canada can be legally shipped and cost-effectively sent to neighboring states like Michigan and New York. While meeting regional content requirements, this isn't just a tax avoidance solution. It's a smart move that allows companies to better control their supply chains and improve adaptability in a volatile trade environment. The crisis is no longer hypothetical. Decisions have been made. Cars have stopped shipping. Plans are being redrawn. And while U.S. factories scramble, investors, dealers, and consumers are witnessing a full-scale reshaping of the global auto industry. Starting with a 50% tax, government welcomes yesterday's decision by the U.S. Court of International Trade, which is consistent with Canada's long-standing position. These are real judges in the court of law who are trying to block the president's power and the policies that he elected to enact. This administration is fighting every single one of those battles in court. This isn't just a legal ruling, it's a warning shot. The U.S. judicial system, usually quiet on trade disputes, just sent a clear message. Not every America First policy stands above the law. Canada has every reason to celebrate. For years, they fought against Trump's 25% tariffs, calling them an economic mask for a politically motivated trade war. U.S. federal court has delivered a huge blow to President Donald Trump's global trade policy. The U.S. Court of International Trade ruled that he abused his authority, and it struck down most of his sweeping import taxes. The court also blocked the 25% tariffs imposed on Canada, China, and Mexico. The court didn't mince words. They didn't call the policy controversial or legally shaky. They said it straight abused his authority in the global trade world. That's not just a judgment, it's a direct hit on the tariff pressure strategy that defined Trump's presidency. Rarely does a national tariff policy get overturned by the judiciary, but this time is different. It's a cold, necessary reminder in a democracy. No one, not even the Oval Office occupant, is above the law. Administration has already filed an emergency motion for a stay pending appeal and an immediate administrative stay to strike down this egregious decision. But ultimately, the Supreme Court must put an end to this for the sake of our Constitution and our country. But if you think it's over, think again. Just hours after the ruling, the Trump administration pushed back. No admission of error, no acceptance of defeat. Instead, they asked to pause the ruling and bring the case to the Supreme Court, dragging the whole judicial system into an ongoing trade battle and affected by similarly unjustified 232 tariffs against steel, aluminum, and the auto sector, as well as continuing threats of tariffs against other strategic sectors, including lumber, semiconductors. These tariffs aren't just lines on a government notice. They're a real earthquake for businesses, especially in sectors relying on cross-border trade from lumber and aluminum to car parts. Canada used to be a trusted partner, stable, neighborly, with no history of trade drama. But overnight, goods from this partner were treated like they came from an enemy country. A shipment of aluminum from Quebec suddenly faced the same tariffs as steel from China. These defensive measures